They were one of the most exciting and charismatic country groups of the 1990s, Little Texas. Known for smash hits like Amy's Back in Austin, Kick a Little, God Bless Texas, What Might Have Been. We have the drummer for the band with us in tonight's show, Del Gray. Del, I'm so glad we could work this out and get you on the show. It's going to be fun.
Man, thank you for having me, Glenn. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. You guys are still working, right? I mean, maybe not this moment with coronavirus, or maybe you are, but you're still touring, still at it.
Absolutely. You know, we're going on our 31st year as a band, and we still do about 75 dates a year. I tell people that I get to be a rock star on the weekend and home with my family during the week, so it is truly the best of both worlds in Little Texas right now.
So how is your schedule right now with the pandemic happening? Are you back to work yet, or are you still waiting?
You know, something we are, and July looks good. Everything's kind of holding in, and you know, it's it just all depends on state and local. But the shows that we have done so far have been, they're implementing, social distancing, and it's a different time right now. So we just got to get through it, and hopefully everything will get back to normal soon.
You guys have always been one of my favorites. I actually got to see you live a few years back at the Jefferson County Fair in Hillsboro, Missouri, and you guys put on an awesome show. And I can tell you guys really take a lot of pride in your live performance, just getting the crowd involved and just creating this party atmosphere.
You know, we really do. You know, we were certainly raised on Merle and Willie and Waylon and the classics of country back in the 70s and 80s when we were growing up. But we were also highly influenced by, going to a Kiss concert or going to Van Halen, going to see Rush. So you kind of, meld all those together, and that's what you get in Little Texas.
Yeah, that's kind of what 90s country seemed to be about, and you were big in bringing that in, that it kind of combining that traditional country sound with a little bit of rock and roll, and it just was a really unique sound at the time, and it really revolutionized country music, I thought, there in the early 90s.
Well, you know, what was neat is, CMT and some of the other video formats, we would have so many fans go, hey, we were looking for MTV or looking for the rock, rock videos, and we saw your video and kind of stopped, and we were hooked on country music from then on. So, and back then we were, all in our early 20s and probably looked a little more rock and roll than country, but hey, it worked, and we were certainly blessed to have a great career and still out there doing it.
Did you set out to be a country band, or were you looking to be more of a rock and roll band and country seemed to work out better? What was the mindset there when you guys were starting out?
You know something, always a country band. We were highly influenced by the Eagles. We loved Restless Heart, Alabama. I mean, those are some of the groups that we grew up listening to and eventually became great friends with. And so we were always in that country mind frame. A little bit of background as far as the band. We kind of come in pairs, and so the bass player and the guitar player Porter Howe, who is now our lead singer, and certainly the main songwriter of the group. They were from Longview, Texas, and they grew up playing together. And then me and the original keyboard player Brady Seals, we grew up in the Ohio area. And loved. We went to Exile concerts when we were teenagers. Dwayne O'Brien and Tim Rushlow, they grew up playing Six Flags in Dallas. And so one night we all kind of met. The four guys were in one group, and Brady and I were playing for another group, and we hung out one night. We were in Massachusetts, of all places, and ended up singing Eagles songs half the night. And we kind of looked around and said, hey, man, we could, this could work. So that's, kind of the beginnings of Little Texas. We
can definitely hear the Eagles influence, and I'm a huge Eagles fan. So I think that's why I became a fan of Little Texas as well. But then you guys got to do the Common Thread album, and you covered Peaceful, Easy Feeling. And I think that's just such a great cover. What was it like to be a part of that?
You know something? I remember I was 21 years old, and I was in the studio the day that we were recording that, and I remember going, man, I'm 21 years old. I'm playing a song of one of my favorite bands, and there was a famous session drummer named Larry London, and I got to use Larry London's drums on that track, and I was like, life couldn't get any better. And then what was neat is we were actually, back in the 90s, there was a show called Primetime Country, and Don Henley was on that show. And he stopped by our dressing room, and we were rehearsing Peaceful, Easy Feeling, rehearsing harmonies. in his low voice, hey, you guys kind of remind me of us when we were back in the 70s when we were young.
Wow.
And so it was an awesome compliment. And I don't get nervous playing, but having Don Henley sit over on a couch and watch you play Peaceful Easy Feeling, it was a little unnerving that night.
I bet so. And like the Eagles, the band broke up and then got back together. 1997 was the year you guys decided to separate for a bit, kind of do your own thing. What was that time like in 97 when the band kind of just had to come to a stop there?
Something, we had worked so hard during the 90s. We averaged, anywhere from 250 to 300 dates a year. And the first year we were out, we did 319 dates, and that's playing dates. Of course, we were all in our, early to mid-20s, and it was just time to take a break. So at the end of 97, we decided to lay it down, and I tell people it was the best thing that could have ever happened to Little Texas, because we got to go home and grow up. I tell people that when I climbed on a bus at 18 and then climbed off a bus when I was 30, I was basically still 18 because I had no life. When you're on the road so much, that's a skewed version of life, and you don't really get a chance to grow up. And so we all got to go home. We all got to enjoy the houses and enjoy the things that we worked so hard for so many years. We got to go to Home Depot and Lowe's and cut our own grass and become human beings, I say. So it was a great time. I was a staff writer for Charlie Daniels Publishing Company, and was able to have some success on, as far as songwriting on other artists. And was very blessed to do that, as well as a few of the other guys in the band went on to be staff writers. And Dwayne Probst, he worked at Gibson for 3 or 4 years. And what was neat is, he would call up and go, "Hey man, I got to hang out with the Eagles last night," or "Hey man, I got to hang out with AC/DC." And I'm like, man, I want that job.
But like you said, your job was pretty cool at that time too. I think you were writing songs for. I know you wrote more for Trace Adkins, right?
I did. I had cuts with Trace and Colin Ray, Gretchen Wilson, Tracy Lawrence, Billy Ray Cyrus cut one of my tunes. So it was a great time, and just had a lot of fun being home and being a songwriter.
Were those hits that those artists recorded? Were they album cuts or?
They were album cuts.
Okay.
The More song for Trace, it went. I think it was top 5, and then Colin Ray had a top 40, and then the others were album cuts.
What was the Colin Ray song?
You Still Take Me There.
Okay, yeah.
It was on an album called Tracks.
I remember that song well. I'm a Colin fan, so yeah,
man,
that's pretty cool.
And he sang the dog out of it.
He's known to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So fast forward to 2004, the band decides to get back together. This time it's yourself, Porter, and the two Dwaynes. Tim and Brady, I guess, decided not to come back. But what was that time like, getting the guys back together and getting back at it?
Something, we would see each other at different functions in the music business, and someone suggested, hey, let's go to SIR and set up and play just for fun. We invited a couple of old road guys down to just kind of hang out and hear it, and we broke into Amy and looked around at each other and said, yeah, this is Little Texas. And so we put it back on the road and have been together ever since. We haven't looked back, and it's been a great time. We've really enjoyed it, and like you said earlier, we thrive on playing live. We enjoy entertaining people, and we enjoy getting to do what we love to do.
And with Tim Rushlow pretty much being the voice of Little Texas and your first run together, and then not returning, and then also Brady Seals not coming back either, I think most people assume that there was some bad blood there between the band and those two guys. How is that relationship with those two right now?
Yeah, man, we see those guys. They're off doing whatever they're doing, and we certainly wish them well. And we just keep going. And the four of us are like-minded and great business partners. And it's kind of easy to be in Little Texas as a 4-piece.
And I got to say, Porter has done a really good job taking over that lead singer role. And then I was looking at all your songs, and I realized that he had a hand in writing most of them.
well, absolutely. And he was kind of the, he was the vocal coach back in the day. So he sang everything first, to begin with. So it was just a natural process. When we first got back together, we actually hired a singer to come in, and there was, we had already had a 15, almost 20-year relationship between the four of us. And so we just kind of had a meeting one day and said, something, if we can't be accepted with the four of us and with Porter singing, we still have the harmonies intact with the two Dwaynes singing harmonies, then we don't need to be doing it. And our first show with Porter, it just killed, and we looked around and said, yep, this is it. Let's go.
Yeah, because I was wondering how it was going to sound when I went to your show. I was like, okay, Tim's not there anymore, and I just thought you guys sounded awesome. It was like you didn't miss a beat, really. So
absolutely. Thank you.